Welcome back to Tipping Point on One America News, weeknights at 10 p.m. Eastern. This segment's Tipping Point, the Porter Ranch gas leak. Near Los Angeles in California, a leaking natural gas well has been spewing toxic fumes into the air for months. The leak, which was discovered after a routine observation in October of 2015, months ago, is apparently the largest natural gas leak ever recorded. That data is according to the Environmental Defense Fund. Thousands of families in the area have been relocated for their own safety. Take a look.
This new video was captured using an infrared camera. It shows a black geyser of natural gas billowing into the air.
It's pretty gnarly looking is what I think of it.
I think it's terrible, and it's making a lot of people sick around here. I know that. They've got to do something about it.
The leak was discovered in late October. So far, more than 6,500 families have filed for help. 2,200 have been relocated. SoCalGas tells us they've pinpointed the underground position of the leaking well, but it could be late March before it's sealed.
Well, that plume looks nasty. The facility is owned by Southern California Gas Company, and it's been used to store gas for nearly 22 million customers in the LA basin. It's also one of the largest natural gas storage fields around the country. They've tried to plug the leak a couple times, but it hasn't worked thus far. Now SoCalGas has begun building a relief well to eventually stop the leak. The invisible plume, we saw it in the video under infrared light, but it can't be seen with the naked eye. It wasn't understood until that video with the infrared light emerged in December. It clearly shows the gas cloud in a whole different light, forgive the pun. Joining me now is lead attorney on the Porter Ranch lawsuit, James Frantz. Jim, of course, represents the community in this lawsuit. Jim, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Liz. Appreciate it.
All right, let's start out with talking about the timeline of this whole thing, when they discovered the leak and then when they notified the community of the leak.
Well, they claimed to have discovered the leak October 23rd, 2015. They didn't notify the community for at least a week later. We don't know why they waited a week to tell everybody that dangerous carcinogenic fumes were released into the atmosphere, into the homes of these folks. And so it's a terrible thing that they delayed it that long, but that may not even be the date it started. It could have been much earlier than October 23rd.
All right, give us a little background here for those of us who aren't as familiar with this type of thing. Are these types of methane leaks, are these common? Do these happen everywhere, or is this a once-in-a-lifetime thing?
Well, have you ever heard about another one like this?
Have not.
This is the worst man-made man-made disaster in United States history. The worst recorded disaster. Over 30,000 residents are affected. Their health is affected. Their home values are affected. They're going down in value every day. They're stigmatized because of this gas leak. Who's going to buy a house in Porter Ranch now? Who? No one.
All right, you mentioned the health issues, and that's the part I would be most concerned about, or I think people around the country looking into this story, are wondering how serious this is. What happens to these residents? You said they weren't even notified for an entire week. Then it's been going on for a long time. What kind of things are they suffering?
I'll give you an example. I have a client. His mother, is an elderly woman, was making tea in the kitchen. She felt dizzy. This was before the end of October. It was after the leak, but before anyone was notified. She fell, broke her hip. Now she contracted pneumonia, and she's in hospice. Her husband was living in a guest house at the hospice facility. And this is many stories just like this. People in and out of the emergency room with bloody noses, sick to their stomach, dizzy when they're driving their car. Many individuals have told me that they've almost crashed their cars. Their kids are sick. It's horrible. They can't walk the dog outside. The kids can't play outside. It's a disaster area.
And the carcinogenic issues, that won't show up potentially until further down the line, correct?
There's been no studies done on this because it's never happened before. This disaster has never happened to this degree, ever. So we don't know, but we know it has radon, it has xylene, it has benzene, toluene, all the carcinogens that you hear about. They cause cancer, they cause mutations, they cause leukemia, and all these things, long-term exposure. We have exposure of over 100 days already, and a tremendous amount of fumes coming down.
All right, let's talk about the solutions here. We know the response hasn't been the greatest from SoCalGas, starting at the beginning when they didn't notify immediately. But what steps are they taking right now to solve it, or what steps should they be taking that they're not?
Well, I could talk about relocation first. The health department, the state actually required that they relocate everyone that's being affected. Southern California Gas and Semper Energy did not do that out of their goodness of their heart. And the relocation that they've done has been terrible. People have been moved around from hotel to hotel. I have elderly people that said they went to one hotel, then they were moved to another hotel from a 3,000 square foot house to a 400 square foot room over the holidays. And they're still, and many times they were living in their car because they didn't have a place to stay.
They just needed to get away from the toxic fumes and get somewhere.
Exactly, and they were ordered to do all the relocation and pay for it in advance. Our clients are finding that they show up at the place and there's no payment, and then they don't know what to do then. They call our office. We end up helping them out, trying to get them the room for them, but it's a terrible situation. It went from the gas leak to that form of hell to relocation hell. So they've been mistreated by Southern California Gas and Semper Energy. It's despicable and unconscionable behavior by the corporations involved.
What about the environment? You mentioned people can't go outside because of the effects it'll have on themselves, the effects it'll have on their children, their dogs. What does this do to the environment around, to the earth? What kind of effects does a gas leak like this have?
There have been reports that it's increased the greenhouse effect in the Los Angeles County by 23% already. By 23%, this leak.
And that's only the information that we already know.
That's right.
All right, let's talk about some of the steps moving forward. So there's an attorney named Patricia Oliver. She sent a letter to the attorneys for the gas company saying that they want the information made public, every step that the gas company is going to take to try to shut down this leak and what they're going to do for the people. Do you expect the gas company to comply with that and make their process more public, more transparent, so people know what's going on?
Based upon their prior conduct, I don't expect them to follow through with that. They promised they'd pay for the relocation properties in advance. They haven't done that in many cases. They promised they'd pay for other expenses that the residents are incurring while they're relocated. I have people that are owed $10,000, $12,000, and they say they'll get back to them, and they don't. So I'd say if they're going to say they're going to do it, they're going to be giving us lip service at best.
All right, what do you expect to be the next step? What do you expect to happen next? I mean, are they just in crisis management mode, panicking, they don't know what to do, and they'll eventually, pay this back and make it right? Or is this just going to be a debacle that goes down in history?
This is the worst catastrophe that's ever happened in any community in the country. They didn't have a crisis plan in place, obviously. And they have all these wells. There's over 90 of them that are like 60, 70 years old that are in the same or worse condition than the one that blew. So the issue is, when is the next well going to blow unless they repair the wells? They shouldn't be using those wells for storage of natural gas. And if we have anything to do with it, we're going to push that they cannot do that anymore.
I mean, after this has happened, forgive the interruption, but after this has happened, are they going to be pushed to do any sort of testing on these wells to make sure that this extent of a plume doesn't release from any of these other ones?
We're pushing for tremendous regulatory oversight by the government. They need to be supervised. They can't take care of their equipment on their own, obviously, because this is what happens. When these folks moved back home, they wanted to get them to go back in 48 hours after the leak stopped, and their homes are contaminated. The gas has been in there. There's carcinogens in there. They can't go back in 48 hours. So we wrote a letter, and then they said, well, we'll give them a week. Well, that's not enough time. They have to go back. They have to get their homes remediated before they can move back in. I have people saying that their pillows in their homes smelled so bad they brought them with them to the hotel, and they got all sick from that smell alone. Think about their whole house, their sofas, their curtains and everything. It's a total mess.
It sounds like a nightmare from start to finish. Jim, we are out of time. I hope you'll come back and update us as this continues to move forward, because I'm sure there'll be updates on when they get it stopped, what they're going to do moving forward, and how it's affected these people in their lives. But I appreciate you coming on the program today.
My
It was
pleasure.
great to see you.
Thank you.
Coming up.